Let's get this out of the way. So, happy International Working Women's Day. Today I have something to show you. Haha, a recent acquisition, which hopefully isn't too shiny here. A 1951 issue of Soviet Woman magazine, one of my all-time favorites. This is the March-April edition, so it celebrates Working Women's Day. And I thought it would be really interesting to show you the way that women have been celebrated in the past from a Soviet perspective, and also how that is portrayed to an international audience. This magazine was produced in many different languages, a list of languages and locations that would grow as the years go on, but English being one of the first. Though you can find this translated again into many different languages. And so the main audience for the English edition of Soviet Woman magazine would be sympathetic, mostly communist women in the US and UK. And I think it's really telling to see the kinds of things that they thought were important for women around the world to know about the Soviet Union, what was going on, their progress, the lives of women, and also how they reported other events around the world internationally in regards to the status of women and progress being made or not made. I think it's important to look at stuff like this because you can find just great inspiration. Sometimes it can be a little sad because it's like, oh, things have not gotten better, or things used to be better, or you know, so on and so forth. This particular magazine is interesting in that there are some inserts. I love when the inserts are still in here. Let's see. See? A lot of the pamphlets that I have scanned on my site are also like inserts from magazines. For example, Anna Louise Strong's In North Korea, First Eyewitness Report. This would be before the 50s, this would be 1949, so really interesting time frame. But this would have been an insert in a Soviet Russia Today magazine from 1949. Soviet Woman magazine would also have inserts. This time, third session of the Council of the Women's International Democratic Federation. I don't know if you can see that. I'll show you later. As well as a painting that you could theoretically frame and put into your own home. This one with an aging Stalin in the middle and an audience around him. It's really beautiful, actually. Don't forget, there's always a back cover. This one of a Tajik woman in traditional dress. Very cute. Anyways, if this is something you're interested in, seeing how a magazine like this discussed Soviet women and women on an international scale from the Soviet lens to a Western audience, stick around and I'll show you all the cool things that are inside of this, as well as some other extras. And of course, there's some fashion inspiration if you're interested in that. All right, let's dig in. Oh, I almost forgot. Assalamu alaikum, comrades. Oh, it's almost Ramadan and I didn't say salams. Let's hope you don't get motion sickness from my jittery hands and the 3 energy drinks I've had. All right, first and foremost, here is the cover page. More information about the photographs on the front cover and back cover will be at the end. So we open it up, and what are we met with? An appeal of the World Peace Council for the conclusion of a pact of peace, the first session, the World Peace Council, and that is what these inserts are from that I will show you soon. On the next page, we have a photograph. Look at all of these different women. It says, meeting in Moscow. All of the women named, along with where they're from, so on and so forth. Oh, and of course, there's the Soviet Woman description, a magazine devoted to social and political problems, literature, and art, published by the Soviet Women's Anti-Fascist Committee and the Central Council of Trade Unions of the USSR. And it tells you what languages it is currently in. But again, that would expand. March, April. It's an interview given by Stalin. Apologies, I won't be spending too much time on the dudes here. There's lots of other really interesting information in here outside of a speech by Stalin. And Dusya. Okay, never mind. Here is the first article directly related to International Women's Day by a deputy of the Supreme Soviet of the USSR. Let me at least read you the first paragraph. Working women of our country are celebrating International Women's Day this year in a situation marked by the powerful upswing in political activity and enthusiastic labor among the workers, peasants, and intellectuals. This was particularly well brought out during the recent elections to the local Soviets of Working People's Deputies and to the Supreme Soviets of the Union and Autonomous Republics, when the Soviet people once again demonstrated their boundless devotion to the great party of Lenin and Stalin and the trust they place in it. Beautiful. Article on new price reduction. Soviet people are constantly aware of the great Stalin concern for their welfare, which is making itself tangibly felt in the day-to-day lives of our country. So again, it's interesting because these are the things that they'd want an international audience to know that's happening. Things that probably wouldn't be covered in the mainstream Western newspapers because it's positive. And of course, interesting snapshots of everyday life, people, in the stores, some girl handling sausage. Yes, yes. A new clothing store. A crockery shop. Now these following pages are really beautiful. On Guard of Peace. Look at this, USSR, bulwark of peace. We don't use that word very often, do we, anymore? It says, Soviet women marked International Women's Day with all-out effort in production as forward-line fighters of the great army of peace from all parts of the beloved homeland. They write to us of their peace watch victories. So these are little snapshots from the people, these women that they're taking pictures of, writing about what's happening in their lives. So we have Maria Smirnova. A new tractor with a shining coat of fresh paint comes off the conveyor. Ah, so she helps create tractors. Look at her. This is Saida Akhadova. Ooh, I like her little braid. All the women employed at the Stalinbad textile mills. Ooh, she makes textiles. Unanimously signed the Stockholm Appeal and sealed their signatures with Stakhanovite labor. Ooh. Let's see, Our Revived City. Look at these girls. Every time I look at Minsk, interesting, the rebuilding of Belarus says they were one of the hardest hit in the war. I recall the city as I first saw it back in 1944, shortly after it had been liberated from the Hitlerite invaders. Yeah, there's lots of rebuilding to be done in the early 50s. See, labor victories. Ooh, that's a bit of a pompadour, ain't it? Here she is out in the field with two male comrades. All-out effort. I just love these, just little snapshots and images of working women in the Soviet Union that you wouldn't have really seen otherwise unless you picked up this magazine. Let's see. Children and Doves. Ooh, more braids. Love that. She's an Estonian composer. Oh, it's a girl who works at a cannery. And who are these women? Knit goods factory. These women are knitters. This is interesting. What are you doing for peace? What Are You Doing for Peace was the title of an open letter from a brigade of spinners at the Gluchov cotton goods mills, headed by the renowned worker I. Ananyeva, which was published in the previous issue of Soviet Women. In their letter, the Soviet spinners described their labor achievements and plans for the future. Let's see. We are following your example. So here is a reply by sisters in Bulgaria to that letter. And here they are. How cool is that? Anyways, lots of fantastic images of what's going on. Peace does not wait on us. It must be won. Interesting. Here's an article called Safeguard the Peace by Louise Dornemann, Secretary of the Democratic Women's Union of Germany. Really interesting. Immediately after the Warsaw Congress, a mass meeting was held in Berlin, attended by 3,000 women activists from all parts of Germany. These fighters for peace declared their readiness to do everything in their power to carry out the historic decisions of the Congress. The meeting issued an appeal to all German women to oppose the remilitarization of Western Germany. Aha! I knew we would get to Korea, the North, of course, because this is 1951. And we know what's happening in 1951, right? So this part of the magazine is really important, right? So the Korean War was 1950 to 1953. In that time, the US killed 20% of their population and leveled 60% of Pyongyang. I forget the exact statistics, but it's something like that. And I think compared to what's going on today, how seemingly women around the world, and feminists especially, tend to not, liberal feminists tend to not really care about the women in Palestine. I think this is a great opportunity to juxtapose how the Soviets were highlighting and uplifting women from North Korea to express their plight and their struggle and what's going on with them in the war and what the US is doing, to see how they highlighted this and juxtapose it, or perhaps be inspired by how we could do that for Palestinian women today. Right? This is where stuff like this is really, really valuable for inspiration and for learning how things were done and portrayed in the past. So let's take a look. So here we have, it says, Pak Den-ai, chairman of the Democratic Women's Union of Korea, addressing the Second World Peace Congress. So she was at that Congress. In spite of their bitter trials, their terrible losses and sacrifices, the Korean people are confident of the triumph of their righteous cause. I don't know if you can see that. I know the lighting isn't ideal. They are confident of victory because truth and justice are on their side, because all the peace-loving peoples, all supporters of peace, are on their side. That's an excerpt of her speech. And here we have, send our sons, husbands, and brothers home from Korea. When are you going to send our boys home from the East? More and more often, this question is being addressed to the U.S. Congress by American mothers whose sons have been sent to die in Korea for the sake of Wall Street's interests. It's really interesting, isn't it? Let the women of America take a bolder and more resolute stand against aggression, against new military adventures, which can bring only suffering to the American people. Let the voices of protest resound louder still. Interesting. And then more images of the destruction in Korea. The aggressor's bloody trail. The Korean People's Army and the Chinese volunteer detachments operating in Korea are dealing with the American aggressors and their hirelings defeat after defeat. As they retreat, the American forces destroy Korean towns and villages and vent their savage fury on the peaceful population, slaughtering women, children, and the aged in order to break the Korean people's spirit of resistance. Another article, The Korean People Will Win, by that same woman from earlier, Pak Den-ai. And the next page, even more on Korea, Korean sketches from the diary of a journalist, Irina Volk. By the way, this is scanned on my website, so you'll be able to look at all of this more in detail if any of these articles really interest you. I'm just trying to show you that in a time of the Korean War, the Soviets were choosing to put in the Women's Day edition of this magazine the plight of the Korean peoples as they were suffering at the hands of American aggression. And now we get into Soviet, information on Soviet women specifically. On this page in the magazine, it says, the masters of their land, facts and figures. So this is going to be little excerpts about what Soviet women across the Soviet Union, all different republics, all different kinds of people, have achieved and what's going on. And I think it's really important to highlight these things, especially compared to what women in the United States had or didn't have. So first and foremost, Soviet women are true masters of their land, enjoying full equality, which is guaranteed them in practice. There is no field of the national economy, science, culture, or art in the USSR to which women do not contribute their creative efforts. It says more than 383,000 Soviet women work as engineers or technicians in industry, construction, and transport. 900,000 are teachers. And more than 1 million work in the public health system, including 191,000 physicians. Interesting. I love that these are just included here. Super helpful resource, honestly. The accomplishments of Soviet women in peaceful construction labor are highly regarded by the party and the government. The title of Hero of Socialist Labor has been awarded to 1,988 women, and over 600,000 women have been decorated with orders or medals of the USSR. More than 413,000 girls study in the USSR's higher education establishments. The number of girl students in the USSR exceeds the total student body of Britain, France, and Italy taken together. The Leningrad State University alone has more than 6,000 girl students. Represented among them are 65 nationalities, including, well, we don't use that word anymore, Nenettes and far northern peoples. Stalin prizes have been awarded to 222 women for outstanding achievements in science and fundamental improvement of production methods. 177 women have won Stalin prizes for outstanding works in literature, music, art, and high artistic performance. See, this is just great. Sorry if this bores you, but how could you not be... Hold on, one second. This is just so exciting to me. And like the fact, again, juxtapose it to women in the United States or even the UK at this point. These numbers, these statistics are phenomenal and just need to be talked about. And the fact that they're highlighting this in the Women's Day edition of the magazine, it's being put out into like the US and UK. I could just imagine being a woman in the US reading this and being like, oh, I wish I had that. Or dang, like, I wish I lived in the Soviet Union. Look at what these women are achieving despite, you know, their villages being recently destroyed. Or the extra pressures and hardships put on them because of the war, yet they're still achieving these things. That's just so, and yeah, it's just so exciting and inspirational. And I love imagining being a woman at that time, receiving this magazine in the mail and reading about what's going on. Put yourself in their shoes. See, the role of women in the country's social and political life is growing steadily, where in 1922 there were only 5 women in the highest organ of power of the Soviet state. Now 280 women are deputies to the Supreme Soviet of the USSR. Of course, there were more women on a more local level. Hundreds of women have been elected to the Supreme Soviet and Union and Autonomous Republics, and over 500,000 to local Soviets of working people's deputies. Yes, sorry, I'm reading that a bit weird. It's just crazy. Like, they've achieved so much. Sure, it's not perfect, but it's a lot more than what people in the West were doing for women. And of course, you have lots more interesting photographs. Desert gardener. Karakum Desert. Volga-Don Canal. Ooh, I love this image. What's going on here? An evening in the Sorokin home, Yuri has started a discussion of V. Azayev's novel Far from Moscow, which the whole family has read, right to left, and then their names. Okay. Just a little family talking about a book. Cute. This is clearly a staged photo, but I like the sentiment nonetheless. Valentina assembles radio tubes fast and with irreproachable precision. Good job, Valentina. She's very focused. Over here. Let's see. Yes. Dang, these guys look good. Oh, and he's got some medals. Ooh. Heck yeah, what are you doing? Hero of socialist labor. Last year, she gathered 10 tons of tea leaves from an area of half a hectare. Good for you. Yes, traditional dance. Oh, look at these kids. More inspiration. The kids are wearing that in the village, I guess. Ah, and here is a article about childbirth, painless childbirth. Interesting. Huh. Again, it's just full of such wonderful illustrations and photos. It tends to be really diverse in representing all of the different peoples of the Soviet Union. And wow, look, Paul Robeson. What a beautiful painting. Peace, no war. Ban the atom bomb. Yeah, well, too late for that. Let's see. Soviet artists and the struggle for peace. Women of the World Forward. The lyrics and the sheet music. And then this is about a orchestra conductor. Look, God, beautiful. Hat. A tribute to the staunchness of the Soviet people. Excuse me, sir, it's time to pray. And we're back. Dancing on the ice. All right. Ooh, I love their ice skating outfits. Yes, especially the sweater. Look at how cute. Oh, I love her turban. Wow. Ah, and then at the very end, there's usually a few pages of fashion from the local fashion houses. Let's see. Hats, accessories, a nice swing coat. What else? Like a casual dress. Ooh, look at her headscarf. Nice. Interesting. The models shown here have been made by the workshops of the Central Department Store of the Ministry of Trade of the USSR. And now we've made it to the last page. Oh, they put the contents on the last page here. Ooh, Norwegian visitors to USSR. And then here's the information for the cover and back cover. So the cover page was leader of the Moscow Electric Bulb Factory. That's what was going on the cover. Huh, I would have never guessed. Bulb factory. Okay, I guess I see it now. And then the back is, whoop, People's Artist of the Tajik SSR, Ashura Nasyarova. Look at her. And now to the pullouts from the magazine, as I mentioned before. It's labeled from where it's from, I guess in case it falls out. Also just important to have a date on there. So it seems to be excerpts of the speeches. This is all bold. To the women of the world. Oh, rusty staples. Young pioneer, perform. Oh. All right, and here's this one. I think that's all right. And then lastly, we have, if you remember, this beautiful print of that painting. Ooh. There he is. Wow. Ooh, I should frame this. Glory to the great Stalin. Then supplement from this magazine, and then the artist. Okay, and then one more thing I want to point out, which I'm not going to go into detail on, but you can look at on my website because it will be scanned, is the same day that I received this Soviet Woman magazine, I also received this pamphlet, which is very exciting. Dear Unknown Friend, in this exchange of letters, American women and Soviet women tell of their families, their work, their special interests, and always of their deep desire for peace and friendship. So this is a pamphlet from 1949 by the Committee of Women, National Council of American Soviet Friendship. And it's excerpts and sometimes full letters exchanged between women from different states. It tells you what state they're from, and then the response from a Soviet woman, and it tells you which village or region that they are from. And it's just so wholesome to see like these sorts of discussions where these American women are like, this is what I do and where I'm at. Here are the questions I have. Here are the things that I want to know about you women. Tell me. And then they do tell them, and they exchange stories and emotion, and like some of these really make me cry. It's so sweet. I love reading things like this, and I just wanted to highlight that as well for, you know, International Working Women's Day. If you want to read some letters between Soviet and American women and the kinds of things that they were learning from each other and exchanging, and the attempt to bring understanding and peace between them, this is another fantastic thing to go and look through and read. Okay. All right. Anyways, I don't want to ramble on too long. I know that just going through that magazine with me, I don't know, was that something you enjoyed? Did you like it? This isn't a super well thought out informational video. I just wanted to take you with me through a new acquisition of mine that I found very fruitful. And I thought it would be interesting to learn a little bit about the women of the Soviet Union and the things that they were doing and things to be inspired by from a very specific snapshot via that magazine. It's just a really beautiful way to learn about the past and to build an understanding of what was and what could have been and what you may be able to also bring in the future. And I also just want to encourage you to look at things like this, read through the free PDFs that I provide, and to understand that things are not black and white. There is so much progress, especially in the realm of women, happening in the Soviet Union, and viewing that progress through how they chose to display it to a Western or international audience is a perspective that we rarely get to see. And so I wanted to show that to you. If you're like, Izdihar, stop, I don't want to just read a magazine with you, I understand. But if you're interested in more ephemera from my personal collection, I have lots, and I can take you with me through them more in the future if you'd like. Anyways, comrades, happy International Working Women's Day. Please be inspired by the past, by history, by Soviet women, by the efforts attempted between the Soviets and the Americans from this beautiful time before the Red Scare escalated into something even more monstrous, and all of this positive history then forgotten. I'm sure there's plenty of people you can argue with down below all about that as well. If you'd like to support me, help me buy more magazines to share with you, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and become a patron of mine on Patreon, or give me a one-time donation on PayPal. All helpful. All funds go to a never-ending collection of positive Soviet content. Anyways, goodbye. Have a great day. I appreciate you.